Alright guys, we're going to pick up this video right where we left off on the last one, which is on the Fiero Indy's interior. And we got a couple things done in between these two videos. I'm going to run this past you now and let you know what we're up to. I went ahead and repainted the gray on these seats as I got a little bit of overspray just on the last video that got onto the gray. So that's all cleaned up now. I did a little bit of pre-shading on the gray, which adds a little bit of subtle shadowing to the recesses in the seat, so that you can see that it adds a bit of scale to the seat. Makes it look a little more realistic, especially once it's in the car and you'll see the recessed area is going to be a little darker than the raised areas. Much like what's going on here with the red. The pre-shading really does work to give you some really nice shadow effects. I've also done this one. I forgot to mention that I also added a bit of panel line paint to the recessed areas just to darken them up even a little bit more. For that, I used the Tamiya Gray Accent Primer. Yeah, I think I just used the gray on this. Yes, just the gray accent primer here. Just to, like I said, to darken some of the recesses. I may touch up with a little bit of the dark gray. Nah, I don't think the seats need the dark gray. I think the gray is going to work just fine. So I did a little bit here on this seat. It's a very, very subtle darkening of the recessed areas. As you can see, a little bit of a difference there between the one that I did with the panel line and one that I didn't. So it just serves to highlight the shadow effects. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on this seat as soon as we're done with this little update. Now, also gone ahead and finished off the dashboard other than the steering wheel. And you can see I made some lenses for the gauges. The gauges are all, if you can see that in there, I've got them all painted up. Painting those little needles in there was tricky, but it's done. I put a little bit of clear epoxy into the gauge faces. They're very shallow, so it was a little tough to get the epoxy to just sit in there. And next time I build one of these, what I'm going to do is just drill those out and make my own gauges for them. So I can recess it a little bit more, and that'll make it a little easier for the epoxy to stay within the border of the gauges. So even the center gauges have a little bit of epoxy in there. You can see the light reflecting off of it. Now, one of the weird things about the Fiero Indy interior is that all of the buttons are black on top of a dark gray background. How you find these buttons in the dark, I have no idea. But in order to replicate that, I painted the radio faces and all the black trim with Vallejo gray black. As I said before in the last video, that this color is a really good simulation of the charcoal gray that's in the real car. So then on top of that, to highlight the black buttons, I use my Tamiya panel line, not my Tamiya panel line paint, my Gundam marker with a fine tip in black, and I just highlighted all of the buttons and switches on the interior so that they would stand out a little bit. Then I used a little bit Tamiya green for the radio display. And so I think that worked out pretty good. But again, if you ask me, why would you make all of the switchgear black on a dark charcoal gray interior? Must make trying to turn something on in this car in that dark a lot of fun. But there we go. The dashboard is completely done. Then I add a little bit of Tamiya panel line paint to the glove box just to highlight the shape of the glove box, make it stand out a little bit more. The interior It's done with its red paint, and now we're going to start adding the flocking powder. The one thing I don't know is whether this toe pad in this car is gray. I'm going to guess that it is. And I am also going to make pedals for this. I don't like these recessed pedals that are engraved into the tub here. So I'm going to be replacing those. I'm also going to be adding matte pockets here. Now the armrests are sitting to the side here. Haven't forgotten those. They have to have a semi-gloss clear put on. And that's where we're at with this. So we're going to continue by putting a little bit of the panel line gray into the recesses of the seat. Let's put this seat to the side so we can get this seat done. We're also going to be adding seat belts and seat belt buckles just to finish off all the detailing on the interior. So we're going to be doing quite a bit and adding quite a bit to the interior. Now this panel line paint, this gray is very, very subtle difference from the gray that's already on the kit. As we're looking just to subtly darken the folds of the seat. We want it to be very subtle so that we don't there we go, guys. And as you can see, basically to work this to me a panel line paint, you just have to touch it to the recess and let it do its thing. It's capillary action will carry it into all of the recesses in the seat. And as you can see, I don't know how visible it is on camera, but it really does enhance the folds of the seat. Makes a huge difference here to my eye. Let's see if you guys can see that. See how it darkens in just the edges of where the seat, the gray meets the red? That's exactly what we're looking for. That's where the shadows would be. Now we could have used the Tamiya black panel liner, but I think that would have been a little too bold. So I may add a drop of the dark gray panel liner just to darken it up a little bit more. Maybe. I haven't decided yet, but I'm happy with the way this looks. So we're going to stop right here with that. It's very easy to overdo this. All right, now we're going to start with flocking this interior. Now everything that's red here is going to get flocking. As I said, we're going to cover the petals because I really want to just put real petals on this instead of using these engraved petals. Never been a fan of that because I don't think that looks realistic at all. But once the dash is in here, you'll see the other petals coming out from right here on the dash. And I think that's going to look way better. So let's go get our flocking equipment. This is the flocking powder we're going to be using. And we'll be right back to do some flocking. Alright guys, now we're going to go over real quick all the necessary tools needed for flocking. Let's just clear out the desk a little bit here, give us some room to work. First thing you're going to need is a little tub to catch all the excess flocking powder that you're going to be dumping, and you will be dumping a lot. Some matte Mod Podge, not the gloss. You need the matte stuff. That's because the carpet is not shiny, and you don't want the gloss Mod Podge or whatever glue you use to shine through the flocking powder. You want it to look matte like a real carpet. Your flocking powder or embossing powder. I prefer embossing powder. I find it to be a lot neater and easier to use than the flocking powder, and it comes in a ton of different colors. This is a very Not really red, but it's think it's gonna work for what I'm looking for. And then an assortment of brushes that you're going to be applying the Mod Podge with. And a jar with water in it, because you're going to be diluting the Mod Podge, because if you put it on there straight up, it's going to be a little too thick, and it's also going to dry very quickly. And you don't want that, because you want to give enough time to pour the embossing powder onto the part and have it stick. So we're going to get started with that. Let's put the dash over here so we don't lose it. And let's get flocked. Okay, guys, and here we go. We got to do a little bit of cleaning up, but what I discovered about this red flocking, which I didn't really have a problem with any of the other embossing powders that I've used before, is that this red will stain your paint if it gets wet. As you see, I got a little bit of a red staining there, which probably won't even be noticeable once the seats are in it. But we're going to be cleaning that up. I've got a little bit here, not too bad here. This side I have nothing because I haven't done any cleaning up yet here. As you can see, just with my finger, I can wipe a good portion of it off. But this red has very heavy dyes in it, and it's really leaving a few stains where I don't want them. So we're going to try and clean all of this up after we give the Mod Podge plenty of time to dry, so that we don't wind up dragging this red color all over our gray interior. It is putting a little bit of a red tint on the interior. This is a very, very bright color on a very light gray background. So we'll see how that turns out. Overall, pretty happy with it. So I'm just hoping that this embossing powder isn't going to stain anything too badly here. I'm seeing a little bit of red everywhere. Even though where it is, it's mostly going to be hidden. You'll never see that again once the model's put together. The really important parts are the door panels, which you'll be able to see as you look into the windows. So I've got to make sure that those are going to maintain their crystal clear white, or this very light gray. So we're going to see how that winds up. But we're going to give that Mod Podge plenty of time to dry. As you can see, the carpet looks great. So I'm really happy with the way that turned out. Here we go, guys. We're making progress on our interior build of the Indy Fiero. Let me just show you where I'm at now with this quick little update. We've installed our map pockets and armrests into the car. Our carpeting is done. We have our seats painted. The dashboard is painted. couple more details I want to add to the steering column. But right now we're going to be working on our gas pedal and brake pedal that we've just put together. Now, weird thing about this model is that it's got an automatic transmission interior, but it comes with a manual transmission. I was going to make some changes and convert this to a manual transmission interior, but I've already painted everything because I completely forgot to do that. So we're just going to overlook that little thing and build it with the automatic transmission interior, because I just kind of forgot to make those changes before I painted it, and I'm not doing it now.
You dummy!
So here we have our build of the, okay, I just showed you this, the gas pedal and the brake pedal. So now we're going to figure out where we're going to install this, where we're going to install this in the interior so that you can actually see it, or so that it looks realistic. Because if you remember, I don't know if you guys can see it now because of the carpeting material, there is a brake pedal and a gas pedal molded to the floor there, which I really just don't like that. So I make it a habit of doing this now. I've done it once or twice and it worked out pretty well, so we're just going to try it again here. So now we just have to get the gas pedal to come through the firewall and sit in a relative position that's going to look somewhat realistic. So it's going to have to be back here somewhere because of the design of the Fiero. We have our dashboard sits here. So we want our gas pedal to end up somewhere, I don't know if you guys can see that, but somewhere around there, but it's going to have to be further back because of the fact that the heel pad on the carpeting should sit right where the gas pedal is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill some holes where the gas pedal and the brake pedal come into the cabin, and then I'm going to, once I snip this in half, matter of fact, why don't we just do this now so we can separate our gas pedal and our brake pedal. And I made these simply by cutting a couple of pieces of styrene and gluing them together. And there we go, we have our gas pedal and brake pedal. So now we're going to drill a hole into the interior tub here and work our way to setting up the gas pedal and the brake pedal. Now we're going to drill the holes at an angle so that we can install, let me see, the pedals at an angle like this. So I'm going to have to come in this way, going down. So let's just get our drill bits and we'll get started with this. Alright guys, so now we have our first pedal glued in there. Not really worried about what the firewall looks like, because you can't see that once the dash is in place. I mean, you can barely see the pedal. I don't even know why I'm doing this, but I just think it looks kind of cool. It'll never be seen again once the car is together, but let me see if I can show it to you guys, what kind of an effect we're getting there. You see the gas pedal down there? I think that's very cool. Like I said, you'll never see it again once the model is together, but it's kind of neat to know that it's in there, isn't it? Isn't that kind of why we do these things sometimes? Because we just want to know that, well, we know that it's in there. Doesn't matter if anybody else knows, but we know. That's what counts. So now I'm gonna wait for that to harden, because you know the Tamiya cement sometimes takes a little while to harden up before I start drilling the other hole, because I don't want to risk moving that from where I have it. But I am really happy with that. All right, guys. Sorry, I kind of screwed up with the camera, and I didn't record installing the brake pedal. But let me see if I can give you a good look at it there. It's pretty much the same way I installed the gas pedal. You can see that there. You see the gas and the brake pedal back there. I think that that just looks really cool. Again, it's going to be a detail that nobody's ever going to see. Except for you guys. Because you're special, so I'm going to show you all the really cool stuff.
You're special.
So, right now we have our map pockets installed, our armrests installed, both our pedals installed. We're going to snip off the excess here, because I'm not sure if it's going to come into conflict with the chassis at all. So basically I'll just snip that off there. And blow off some of this. One thing about this embossing powder is that it does start to, it moves around on you sometimes, the little bit that's not fully glued down on the upper layer. So you have to keep brushing it off and cleaning up as you're working. So we have our pedals done. Really wish I could get you guys a really good look at that and how good that looks in there. There you go. Really happy with the way that came out. One day we'll build one of these with a manual transmission interior and add a clutch pedal, but that I think is very cool. Focus. There we go. Let me see if I can zoom in on that for you guys. There we go. There go the pedals right there. If we can get it to focus. There we go. And stop shaking. There we go. Look at that. Now that is much better than those pedals that are molded to the floor. Again, nobody will ever see this, but it's still very cool. Alright. Now we're working on our seat belts. Seatbelt buckles. This kit is just becoming more and more parts heavy as we go along. Now, I cut the seatbelt buckles out of styrene. You guys can see here. I've already painted them to match. They're going to be a slightly different shade of gray. Don't know if I'm happy with that color. It's a little too light. You know what? I'm not happy with that color. I'm going to have to get my other gray. So I'm going to go and repaint these, and then we'll be back when they're done. Okay, guys, and now we're done with our seatbelt buckles. They're attached to the seat. I just wanted to show you exactly how I attached them. Basically, I just glued them at an angle to the seat here to mimic the position that they're in the actual car. Where in the car they're actually a little further forward, but I thought that this aesthetically just looked a little better. Now normally they're strapped to the floor of the car. I attach them to the seat because once this model is together, you'll never see that they're not attached to the floor. I'll give you an idea what that's like right now. As we install the seat into the interior, you see that only the buckle portion of it is actually going to be visible once the model's all together. So we don't really have to worry about the seatbelt being anchored to the seat instead of the floor. For all the accuracy that we're trying to put into this, there are some places where we can't cut little corners. But you see here, they've got the orange release buttons painted. And I'm really happy with the way that's looking. You can see all of the extra details, the map pockets that I added there. All of the paint work. Our floor pedals. This interior is really shaping up nicely and is really now starting to look like an Indy Fiero interior. So that being said, I think we're going to leave it at that for this portion of it, and we'll be back with the next portion of the interior build, where we'll be adding our seat belts. And I think that's going to be the last thing we have to do to this interior. But this video's gone on long enough, so I don't want to keep you guys, glued to this video if you made it all the way through for too much longer. And plus, now you have to come back to the next video to see how it all ends up. See, that's called building tension, just like a real TV show. So I'm going to leave it at that. Give you one last look at this interior, the way it's coming together. I'm really happy with it. And I guess I'll see you guys on the next one.